Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about variant 7 Soul. It only came out yesterday and I have managed to explore it 100%. And in this video I'm going to give my honest feedback, what I think about the variant nodes, how I enjoyed it and all that other stuff. Before I get into the nitty-bitty grits of the video, I do need to address 2 points. First and foremost is, regardless of what I say, please do keep in mind this is my perspective, my opinions, and I am at the moment largely speaking from perspective of somebody who is having a stacked roster, who has completed all the content, and I can very well accept that there will be a large group of people who absolutely love variant 7. And that is because I personally believe that variants are no longer really an endgame piece of content. Variants are more for the group of people who maybe have freshly become Thronebreakers or are trying to become Thronebreakers. On the second point, I have also heard quite a lot of people complaining about Variant 7, that it's not worth doing and the rewards are crap, and well, they're just very unimpressed with the variant. And truth be told, when it comes to the piece of content itself, I'm not overly impressed myself either. But one thing is definitely clear: variants still offer the biggest amount of rewards for least amount of effort. There are no other piece of content in the game where for 4 hours of questing with relatively mild difficulty level, you can earn 25% tier 5 CC, 3 tier 5 basics, half a 6-star crystal. Yes, there are other rewards as well, but many of the top tier players don't really care about them. However, overall, all things considered, even if you do have 20 plus 30 plus rank 3 6 stars, it's still worth doing because they do offer the most amount of rewards for the least amount of effort required comparatively to anything else in game. If variants are not worth doing, then nothing in this game is, and you probably need a different game, because even though it might not necessarily primarily target the reward structure that are suited to me and many other people, it's still a lot of stuff in there, and it's not like you're exploring Act 6 that takes 3 weeks to do. It's 4 hours, 5 hours, casual pace, no items really needed for many, and there's still 25% tier 5 CC holds a lot of value. That's like a week's worth of rewards for top 10 AQ Alliance, plus tier 5 basics and all the other stuff. So variants are still very much so worth doing. However, hopefully we do get a rewards update going forward, which is something that I think a lot of people were mildly disappointed with. But at the same time, I must say that this probably is my least favorite variant ever. And let me explain that. I don't think Variant 7 is a bad piece of content, the same way as I don't think Hangover 3 is awful movie. It's funny, but has lost most of its charm because it's been done twice before. There's absolutely nothing new, and people who made Hangover 3 clearly were more busy trying to make sure that it is at least somewhat different than Hangover 1 and 2 than they were trying to make an original funny movie. Now, Hangover 1 was a masterpiece, just like initial variants were. Slowly but surely, I think the kind of enthusiasm and the ideas that they have there have definitely fallen down to a point where Variant 7, quite honestly, feels like an intern pieced it together with scissors, glue, some duct tape, using cardboard cutouts from previous variants and like node combinations. It honestly feels just like an afternoon job, kind of like Nova Buff, where you do something just for the sake of having it done. It doesn't feel like a piece of content where any meaningful amount of thought process has been put in to make sure that players actually enjoy the piece of content. And I think there is no better example than the variant 7 in itself features aspects from pretty much every single previous variant, 5.3, and has one new original node that I ever noticed that was a crappy node. It's a node that gives opponent green fury buffs because haha, it's hulks, and overall actually hurts you more than helps you, because the way it worked was basically every time Hulk isn't immune to poison, which in that fight is like every 10 seconds or so, opponent gains 10% fury. When they reach 10 of those green furies, you go unblockable and get a fury buff for 65% for 8 seconds. So basically 90% of the time it helps your opponent, and then tiny bit damage increase for you, but meanwhile you're taking a much more block damage. That node's shit. It's crap. And that's the only new node. Other than that, we saw everything that we had seen before and much of what we hated before. So it just felt cheap, rushed. It didn't feel like somebody or anybody put in any effort in that piece of content, at least to me. And that also escalated another problem that I was very, very wary of, the same situation that we had with Variant 1. And in my opinion, even though the difficulty level is lower than the Variant 1, the problem in this piece of content is even higher. And as a best kind of like piece of evidence that I can use for this argument probably is the fact that even I, who have fairly stacked roster, often ended up using 2 of the same champions, as a 5-star and as a 6-star, over bringing in separate different options. And why did I do that? Because for many of the paths, there are only like 3 champions, 2 champions in a game that actually can work decently. Now, let me illustrate what I mean. So, let's take, this is a champion pool that we have in game. Since Variant 7 only basically allows us to use heroes, let's fold that sheet down to represent about 60% or 70% of that sheet. Now, these are the champions that we can bring in Variant 7. Now, since each chapter we can only use 2 of the 6 classes, let's fold this sheet of paper into 3 even parts, or evenish. So these are the champions. Out of that whole wide sheet, this would represent the amount of champions that I can bring in a single chapter right now, because I need to have heroes and I need to have 2 specific classes. Other than that, most of the classes are specifically tuned for most of the paths are specifically tuned for 1 class. So it means at this point I need to fold it in half once again, because if I can bring in Cosmic and Science champions in a quest, but all of the Cosmic champions suffer 50% attack reduction, then I will resort to Science champions, which represents this. And then out of all of that, half of the champions in each class are duds, are memes, are champions that nobody wants to play, nobody wants to use, and nobody really incentivized us enough to use. So out of all of that big sheet, I'm left with this little bit that would actually represent 10 champions in a game in any given class that are actually viable and playable. Out of those 10 champions, for instance, one of the paths, it requires poison immunity. How do you think, how many poison immune champions are there? Well, definitely not half, so let's say about a third. So let's try and fold it 3 times again, and you are left effectively with this tiny piece of paper out of entire sheet that represents about 4, 5, 3 champions, of whom you better have 1 ranked up, or you will end up struggling and just being annoyed, because that is how this quest is made. Now, do not get me wrong, the first couple of times I folded my sheet, that is necessary. That is necessary to give piece of content its identity. This is villain focused variant, this is hero focused variant, fine. Second time I had to fold it, already starts to represent some problems, because it demands you to have basically access to pretty much all of the champion base, which most of the people don't. And then it doesn't become, once again, a matter of you playing well, it becomes a matter of you having all the champions that you might possibly need ranked up. Now, I haven't really heard of anybody getting stuck on any particular fight because the fight's too hard. Right now, the comments that are flying in my completion guide video saying I'm stuck because I don't have any good skill hero champions that could do that. I think for what variant piece of content is meant to represent right now, they went far too specific with the champion requirements. And again, we are in the position where I can complete it with no problems, and I find it extremely easy and lackluster. Why? Because I do have a big roster. But at the same time, me as a player don't find that variant exciting anymore, because it doesn't really offer the most exciting rewards. So ultimately, top tier players are kind of meh about the variant. It's not bad, it's not awful, it's not exciting, it's not what we wanted. It's about to be 2 years, I believe, since anything exciting was released in this game. Mid-tier players can find it relatively exciting, but will get frustrated because there will be a lot of issues with holes in their rosters. So somehow Kabam once again managed to design a piece of content that doubtfully will entirely satisfy anyone, which is a clear design philosophy flaw. There should be a target audience, and I just don't see it right now. Can't have relatively mid-tier difficulty quest that requires super specific encounters. So that is what I think overall about Variant 7. Is it worth doing? Yes, of course. The rewards are still good. The effort you have to put in is not that bad. Less than 24 hours in, I have 100% explored it. No items used outside of energy refills. No other piece of content offers you a quarter of TF5cc for as little effort. At the same time, do I feel, I don't know, refreshed, excited? Is this the piece of content that finally brings us out of the drought of anything worthwhile happening in the game? No. This is, I personally believe, the least exciting, the least inspired variant that we have had to date, because there's nothing new, there's nothing original. Everything is just a rehash of whatever we have had, and not rehash of the best things. It's kind of like rehash of the leftovers. But that is my personal opinion. That is what I think of this piece of content. Am I happy that it came to the contest? Yes, obviously it's better to have a Variant 7 than not to have a Variant 7. Did I have some fun fights there? A couple. The rest of it was just finding champions that I actually can use and just doing that. So I don't know. Last thing that I do want to mention is that once again, to me it is quite clear that variants no longer really represent a piece of content that's exciting to the top tier players who have been playing for top AQ rewards, who have been exploring everything else in the game. Partially due to the rewards, as the rewards do not really hit that top end bracket. There are no 6-6 stones, there are no abundance of 6-star shards. I believe it's only like half a 6-star crystal that you can get there. No 6-star rank up gems. You guys get it. Like, those are not really the rewards anymore that excite the people at the very top. And the difficulty level shows for that. Variants 1 and 2 were relatively challenging and were somewhat intimidating. I recently re-explored Variant 1, and I can promise you Variant 1 is still harder than any other variant in the game right now. Even though our rosters have grown, well, massively since the time it was released, 2-3 years ago. So yeah, I think Variant at the moment, from my perspective, is kind of like a slightly beefed up version of monthly event quest. That's the way I look at it. Absolutely no frills, absolutely no intimidation. Just go grind it out, grab the rewards, and move on. So yeah, hopefully, that being said, I'm perfectly fine with variants targeting a different group of players, but the thing that I'm not fine with is, once again, that top tier players haven't had a single interesting, exciting piece of content since the release of Abyss. And Abyss isn't even that high in difficulty level either. It's more so spending Fiesta because of that hit counter, where it's not really a place to show insane amount of skills, where Kabam puts a timer on when you're meant to die. So I do hope we return to the piece of content like Maze and some other challenge modes, boss rush, I don't know, something that genuinely does pull out those revives, those items out of you. However, finishing the video on a positive note, and I know that half of you are probably not listening anymore, but are busy in the comments section telling me how much of a loser I am for having an opinion. I do want to say that I did enjoy the amount of revives that were spawning in Variant 7. Variant 7 is filled with revives throughout. I believe I collected about 10 revives, so even though I didn't use a single health potion or revive exploring that, I ended up earning about 10 revives, which pretty much offset the energy refill cost, so that was quite awesome. So I do not know exactly like what are the best strategies to form those revives, but as you are exploring Variant 7, definitely do pay attention to where you can find them, because there's a lot of them. I think on the final map alone, when I did 4 paths out of 4 runs, I snapped 3 revives or something like that. So that was kind of cool. I like that, but obviously that's just a tiny little upside to everything else that I was not overly huge fan of. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, then hit that like button. If you didn't, hit that dislike button, go to the comment section and tell me that I need to get a life, because I know nothing. Anyways, Jon Snow references aside, have a nice day, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya! Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about